Good evening, Baltimore and around the country and around the world. Welcome to another episode of the DMV Daily Radio Show. I am your producer, Brother Jason. I'm sitting in just for a moment. The distinguished attorney, Ivan Bates, will be your host this evening. But first, of course, we have to pay the bills, and we'll start off with that. And then, of course, we welcome your calls or texts. Our system is designed that we can take your questions and or comments by text messaging. So if you want to text, you could also post your comments or questions on the Facebook page. You can also do it on the Periscope as well as the YouTube page. There are so many ways that you could reach out to us. But again, we'd love to hear from you this afternoon or this evening. So you can give us a call at 410-819-2370. Again, that number is 410-819-2370. And so to start off, as I said, we have to take care of some bills first. So just want to let everyone know that this broadcast is being brought to you by that stellar legal team known as the Bates and Garcia Law Firm. They specialize in criminal defense, real estate, bodily injury cases. Bates and Garcia is the Maryland's legal dream team. They get those W's. That means they get those wins. For those that don't understand what the W means. So make sure you give them a contact today for your free consultation. The phone number is 410-814-4600. Again, that number is 410-814-4600. We've had many folks come on the DMV Daily Show and testify to the fact of how powerful and how well represented they were with the Bates and Garcia law firm. So again, if you have any legal needs, and not just in this state as well, they do operate out of other states as well. So give them a call. Ivan, what other states do you actually operate out of, by the way?
Hey, how's everybody out there? We've done cases in California,
okay,
Virginia, Louisiana, Pennsylvania. So, we go everywhere around the country. We'll be there to represent you and your needs.
Well, so we know that this show has been reaching all around the country, and we want to thank everyone for joining us and being a part of our program. And again, if you have any legal needs, Bates and Garcia is that team, that duo team to give a call to. Let them know that the DMV Daily Radio Show referred you, and they will hook you up with the homeboy or the homegirl hookup. Now, I got to say the homegirl as well because I can't leave my ladies out. So, again, that phone number is 410-814-4600, or you can go to batesgarcia.com for more information online. This show is also being brought to you by that savvy political strategic group at the Politicom Strategic Solutions, who have mastered the art of political communications and have successfully gotten folks elected since the 1970s. If you're looking to run for office in 2020, make sure you give them a call today. And if you're watching the screen right now, you'll see their banner being displayed online. But if you're looking to start a campaign in 2020, make sure you give them a call to get your campaign set up with a user-friendly website, integrated social media, campaign plan, and much more. Their phone number is 240-242-7505. There is now a homeboy, homegirl discount. So if you let them know that the DMV Daily Radio Show referred you, they're going to hook you up. Now, their rates were already affordable. But again, if you mention the DMV Daily Radio Show, they're going to make sure that you get a special discount just for listeners of this program. And during the month of February as well, they are offering a Black History discount. So give them a call. This is the opportunity now if you want to get your campaign started and you're looking at getting in at a very affordable rate with a great political strategist team. You want to get in contact with them now during the month of February while they're offering the Black History Month discount. Again, you can get in contact with them at 240-242-7505, or you can visit them online at politicomsolutions.com. Now, also, if you'd like to advertise with the DMV Daily radio show and be able to present your business, product, or service, and potentially reach thousands around the globe, this is a global show now. We're starting to see hits around the country as well as around the world, according to our statistical data online. So give us a call today at 443-294-3900. Or you can go to dmvdaily.news, click on the advertise with us, and fill out the form online. And we will get back to you immediately and let you know exactly how you can get started by bringing your product or service on the DMV Daily Show. And we do have a Black History Month discount going on right now, so the rates are very affordable. It is the time to get in if you want to advertise very affordably and, again, potentially reach thousands around the country. Again, you can go to dmvdaily.news for more information, or you can give us a call at 443-294-3900. Or you can send us an email at info@dmvdaily.news. So, folks, again, today is Tell the Truth Tuesday. If you haven't followed us today on the DMV Daily Facebook page or social media page, we have launched the brand new podcast with Ivan Bates, Esquire, known as Law and Disorder. You're going to learn a little bit about the law. You're going to hear some great guests that are going to talk about all kinds of legal issues around the country that you definitely want to tune in and listen to. It just launched today, and we're going to kick this back to Ivan Bates, Esquire, who just got into the studio. Of course, he was late taking care and representing his clients. But just letting you folks know that the podcast Law and Disorder launched today, and he has one of his guests from his from his podcast actually here today in the studio that we're going to talk to. And again, folks, we'd like to hear from you. If you had a chance to check out Law and Disorder this afternoon by any chance, we'd love to hear your comments about the podcast. Again, the phone number is 410-819-2370, or you can post your questions again in comments online. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this back over to Ivan Bates. Good afternoon, sir, or good evening.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, family. Sorry I was late. Apologize. I had to do my day job, running. But today was a very good day for us. Today, we actually launched my own podcast, Law and Disorder. And it's a podcast in which we talk about the criminal justice system. We talk to people involved in the criminal justice system, people from different backgrounds, because the purpose of the podcast is not to just entertain, but to really educate. To educate people about the criminal justice system and how it really works. Our first podcast, we had a young man who's sitting next to me, Mr. Corey Woodfuck, and I'll talk about him in a few seconds. But the first podcast, we just really talk about the difference in the state court system and the federal court system. Nothing more than educating the individual about what the court system really looks like. As an attorney, one of the problems that I often come across are individuals don't understand the court system. They don't understand how the process works, what can happen. And so I wanted to try to put something together that would make it easier for everyone to have a better understanding. But I also recognize that what happens on the state side, the state of Maryland, is a lot different than what happens on the federal side. And with that being the case, I felt I need to have somebody who could help balance out that equation. I do a lot of federal work. I do a lot of state work. But I wanted to have somebody that had really lived it, been through it. I want to introduce to you my guest today, very, very special young man. I was just waiting for the time to really have him as one of our guests, and he's the first guest of Law and Disorder. His name is Corey Woodfuck. For those of you that have been around Baltimore in a while, you may recognize the name Big Corey. Big Corey was in Park Heights back in the day, late early 80s, early 90s. And he was, and I'll let him give you exactly what he was doing in that community, But let's just say his actions caught the attention of the federal government, him and a number of other individuals, and they filed what's called a RICO charge against him in the early 90s. And they sent Corey Woodfolk to jail, and I guess in 1992, was it? 1993, for 50 years. So when he went to jail on the federal side for 50 years, it was... all practical purposes, it was a life sentence. And, for many people, that's where the story ends. But for Corey, I realized that's where the story really begins. And I want to talk about that process, your thoughts about criminal justice reform. And I want you to give individuals out there the understanding of just because your loved one may have been sentenced to an exorbitant amount of time, that there is some sort of hope for them. And what they, meaning the individual who may be incarcerated, what must they do to try to grab on that hope? Corey, you've been a pretty amazing individual. It's almost as if you lived two lives, would you say? Three.
Seems like it.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
The life that you had when you went in, how old were you when you went to prison?
23.
You're 23. And then when you came out of prison, how old were you then?
48.
48. So more than half your life at that point in time you'd spent in prison.
Yeah, besides a couple of years in the state joint.
Okay. So why don't you tell the listeners about, who Corey is and really who you were up until the point of getting that sentence, and then we'll talk about the 50-year sentence. Who were you when you were in your late teens, early 20s?
I came up on Park Ice and Woodland, and the neighborhood was, of course, rife with drug activity and all that kind of stuff. And it was comfortable for us. That's what we knew, even though on my side of the street, past Pimlico Road, we had houses and things like that. Sort of separated us some from the blight that, further up Park Ice Woodland had, but we were still a part of the community, and the part of the community that touched everybody else touched them the same way. So I grew up in a all right home, and we had pretty much things that we wanted, not a whole bunch of fancy special stuff. That's one of the reasons that ultimately was not forced to the street, but took a liking to the things that I saw on the street, and I made the best of it for what it's worth, knowing now that it was, of course, the wrong thing to do and a tough life to live, but it was something that I remember. I don't have any nostalgia about it, about the life I live. I don't watch gangster movies or shows when they make them no dope shows. I lived that life over for me. But it was something to remember, and it was a tough neighborhood back then. Mid-'80s, late 80s, early 90s. You had to be aggressive in Park Heights. It was different.
So I guess it was very similar in a lot of ways to what we see in Baltimore City now with the drugs and the gun activity that we had back in the 90s and still have it now.
Yeah. So the difference then and now was that we didn't have gangs then.
Okay.
And whatever reason they ultimately sprung up, I was gone when they did, but it was a lot of difference because we had neighborhoods. People were from different neighborhoods. We had friendships. We grew up from children. Guy on my block I grew up with from a baby, and another guy from around the corner from childhood. And these are the relationships that formed and ultimately pushed us into the streets and stuff like that. But it was because of a camaraderie we had from growing up as children together.
Okay. So I guess you were doing some things that caught the eyes of the federal government.
That's correct.
And there came a time period, I guess you were arrested and charged federally?
I remember being charged and with the feds. I had a lot of state cases at that time. I had state cases that I had won. And when I got to the federal side, it was quite different in that there was no wiggle room. There were no attorneys or at that time that was comfortable with fighting cases with the federal government. They were all, resigned to dealing with state cases. So when the federal government came along with the 1987 reform bill, the crime reform bill, and was signed, I believe it was under Reagan. When that bill came into effect and they changed the law, no parole, 85% of your time, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization cases, big drug cases, 848s, CCEs, all those things, and everybody was getting smashed life sentences, 50-year sentences. it changed the trajectory of the young guys in the neighborhood, and ultimately their ability to be able to come home to get another chance to change their lives. Because at that time, I mean, when you get 30 or 40 or 50 years, you know, for all intents purposes, you had a life extinguishing sentence. Even if you get out when you're 50 or 60 years old, anything that you had or any aspiration you had for living a life of crime was pretty much over. And I understood, you know, now looking at it, I understand the intent of the law and how it was supposed to work. And I think it, in a lot of ways, it did do that. It just, you know, took a lot of men from their families for a long period of time. Some that would have been rehabilitated quite sooner than those life sentences had they ever given a chance.
Mm. So, do you remember the day in which you were there and you received the 50-year sentence from Judge Motz?
Judge Frederick Motz. I remember after I was sentenced. In federal court, it's different in that they give you months instead of years. I mean, of course, it works out to be the same thing, but it's just a little different, you know. And I remember the judge giving me 50 years. But not 50 years, he gave me 600 months. Me and one of my co-defendants.
He gave you how many months?
600 months.
600 months.
600 months. And
good gosh.
When he gave me 600 months, it went over my head because at that time I actually didn't know how many years 600 months was. I mean, being in the street, hustling, selling drugs, getting money, doing all those kind of things, being around a lot of money, you would think that the person would be pretty astute in math, but, you know, I guess that was some sort of shortcoming for me, especially on that day. But I remember he gave me 600 months, and he said to me, he said, some people may say, why not life? And I recall vividly, he said, hope. He said, I'm going to leave you a bit of hope. I mean, for me at that point, not knowing what that meant, because my life was a life of crime, that's all I knew. But when I was walking back, my family was crying in the background. I didn't know why they was crying. I thought I made out at 600 months. It sounded like I did pretty good. I was walking back into the holding area after the sentencing, and I asked one of the marshals, because I was counting in my head, I was saying to myself, 12 going to 600 a lot of times. That's how I'm trying to break down how much time it is. Uh-huh. So I asked the marshal, I said, how much time he give me? He said, son, he gave you 50 years. So I said, 50 years. I think if he'd have said 20 or 30, it may have had a more of an immediate effect on me. But when he said 50, I said, well, they can't do that. I mean, how do you give somebody that kind of time? Like, you know, for uncharged crimes and things like that, you know, at the time. That's the way the law was. And I just assumed that one day it would change. But throughout all of the years in prison, it pretty much never did. When you get those kind of numbers in the federal joint, most of the time you're going to die in jail. You're going to do every single day of it.
Yeah.
And I ain't cry about it. I was resigned to it. I had lived a life that was something that I shouldn't have. I was completely aware of the consequences. Not so much on the federal side, but on the state side. But in any event, still, you know, you're breaking the law. You know, you're doing things you shouldn't, whether it's violent crime, whether it's dope, you know. So you make a choice about doing something different for yourself. You make a choice about, hey, you know, I got to go to jail and I got to be in for a while. So that's what it was for me. I didn't, like I said, I didn't shed any tears about it. Just go away and work hard and try to do something different, try to change, maybe get a chance to get out of prison, if at all possible.
Okay. So when you're in prison, what happens when you're first there? Do you automatically decide that you want to change your life, or you're 23 years old.
You want to know the real story?
Yeah.
Okay.
They want to know this real story.
So when you come in, at this time I come into Lewisburg, federal penitentiary, and Lewisburg was one of the toughest joints on the East Coast at this time. And all of most of the great majority of men in there were men that had crews. You know, whether that they was Kings on New York, you had the different gangs, you had DWBs, you had Dirty White, you got Aaron Breville, you got all these different crews, New York, Philly, everybody. It ain't like now where everybody comes, you get guys coming in with handgun charges. People had crews and they had big cases. And that's pretty much what the federal government was bringing into those joints. And I remember coming in and I was young. And they bring you into the cell, into the unit, and after we got strip searched and everything. One of the guys, I think he was repeat offender. He was coming back to the joint. He was a little older, maybe 35. I was 23. And I remember him saying to me, he said, youngster, when you get on the unit, get you a knife. So I said, I'm going to need it that fast, son. He said, yeah. So I said, okay. I said, I understand. So when they bring me up to the unit, they try to crack a cell to put me into. And this is how it was. So you want to hear the story. So they bring me up on the cell. They say, crack 19. I remember clear. They crack 19. The cell is black. And you can't see no light in there. The guy done bust the light out of the joint. So when they crack the door and the door rolled back, he's standing in the middle of the floor with baby oil all over him. And he got razors in his hand. And he's saying, if you let him in here, I'm going to kill him. So I look at the cops, and I look at him. So I'm saying, y'all want me to go in here? Because I'm going to go in here if y'all want me to go in here. You can assume maybe he bluffing, he just don't want to sell it. A lot of times they don't want nobody to come to sell with him. They act like they're stupid, you know what I mean? But then again, you in the penitentiary, you don't know how they going to act. Uh-huh. So he says, hey, man, listen, you bring him in here, I'm going to kill him. So they say, close 19. So they close it up. And then I hear a guy all the way down the other end of the hall. He said, where you from? So I said, man, I'm from Baltimore City. As soon as I get there, first thing, Baltimore City. He said, man, I'm from Baltimore. Come down here. And they bring me down to the cell and get the cell. The gentleman is a gay guy. Now, I don't know it at the time, but he's from Baltimore City. He's the only guy that would take me in the cell. Other guys from different parts of the city, different parts of the state, nobody take me. We was in a hole, put us in a hole when you first come in. So I go in the cell next night. He tell me what's going to happen when you get there. You got to go through what's called Quaid, Captain, Lieutenant, AWs, Associate Wardens. All them come in, they sit down, talk to you, find out whether or not you can come on this compound. And when I had that meeting, I was prepared to go out on the compound. And the captain told him that I was too young, send me to another joint. He said, man, he's too young, he can't come here. And I remember a unit manager by the name of Hollenbach saying, who do you know here? And at the time, I knew a good friend of mine named Ricky Duval, Slick, my man. And he said, if he knows Slick, he going to be all right. And they let me out on the compound. I'll never forget it. But you learn really fast to grow up because everything was really aggressive, really fast. Mind your business, no drugs, no alcohol, no homosexuality. Any of that stuff gets you killed or more time on your sentence. That's just how it was. And you learn really quick. Mind your business, stay to yourself. Don't interfere in anybody's business. It wasn't the kind of place like a lot of state joints guys really don't have, and they robbing you when you come from commissary, slit your bag, try to stab you for some commissary food, stuff like that. It wasn't that kind of place. But on the state side, it was different in that. A lot of times guys on the state side, they stick you just so somebody can see you. Hey, man, I put the knife in them just to get a name for yourself. He ain't trying to kill you, he trying to hurt you. Over there, they kill you in front of the police. It was completely different. They kill you in front of the police, they ain't had no problem about doing it.
They had 50-year-long sentences, so they weren't expecting
life
to get
sentences.
out. Yeah.
Some of them have 25, 15, it didn't matter. It was different. Their mentality about how to deal with problems was different, was more aggressive, but had to be for a reason. It wasn't petty stuff. They didn't steal your food or, wasn't that kind of game.
Okay. So when did you decide that you wanted to really do something in terms of, hey, I want to focus on how I can get out of here?
Well, when I first got there to Lewisburg, it was so much to do. All kind of. When I met up with Slick, he took me to an Italian party and a Spanish party. Everybody got a bunch of food. And at this time, I had been with city jail for a long time, so we pretty much starved. Then when you get there, you're in the hole, you ain't got nothing to eat. When you get out on the compound, they got a lot of foods. The guys cooking. They're doing a lot of different things. So the excitement of finally being to roam around, be on the yard, made a difference for me. So for the first few days, you sort of forget the sentence that you just been given, that your life has been pretty much extinguished, that if you don't make a difference in being there during this time, that ultimately, you can cancel Christmas. You're done. So it took that away for a few days. And after that, you realize, okay, I'm here. And then you start talking to people about prison. You start talking to people about the law. You go to the law library, talk to guys in there, see what they're doing up there, what your case means, how can you be helped, if you can be helped. Because it just didn't make sense at that time that a person could be given an exorbitant amount of time if that person wasn't tried for that crime. I remember the attorney coming to me saying, hey, those charges that were dismissed on the state side, a lot of the more violent crimes, they're going to bring it up in federal court. I said, well, am I going to be charged with it? They said, no. So I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they don't charge you with it over there. If they think you did it since, and the judge just increased your sentence. I said, how can you do that? He said, well, that's the law. I said, well, you don't stand a goddamn chance over there. You don't stand a chance. And that's what happened, And so you try to get around it. You try to find a way to get around fighting, working against the law. You try to find a way to push back on it. Well, somebody got to want to listen to me. Some judge is going to listen to me. Some prosecutor is going to know this is wrong. But that's not how it works. The legislature sets statutes into place.
Yeah.
They set the elements for the crime and the punishment. How the judge is supposed to be able to give you whatever sentence, what the rules of evidence are, and that's what they go by. And you can fight against the extreme till your eyes fall out. Don't make no difference. They're gonna give you what you're looking for on that side of the wall.
So there eventually comes a time period within your life where you just start going to the law library every single day. What was that about, and why were you going to the law library? Before then, what was your highest level of education?
My highest level of education was 10th grade.
Okay, so
bring me back to that point about why I ultimately got to the law after I explained to you about the 10th grade.
Okay, tell me about the 10th grade.
So I get put out of school in the 10th grade. I was going to Maryville, got transferred from Maryville to Northwestern. Right?
Okay.
And I'm up Northwestern, and I just started getting involved in the drug activity. And I'm up there, and I got drugs on me. So the truant officers, whoever those guys are, they catch me. And they throw me out of the school. So I'm out of school now. But I'm in the 10th grade. I'm out of school. But I liked school. I was really good in school. When I was in school, I was in rich classes. We called them in rich classes.
Okay.
7-4, 8-2, 9-1, all of them rich classes. I was in all those rich classes. But I liked school. But I was still in the corners. I was in the street during the daytime. So me and my friend at that time, who's passed now, good soldier, he says, you go to school during the day and I'll take care of the shop. And then when you come out of school in the afternoon, you take over. And these are things that happened. I was 16 years old, young, I think 16, 15, something like that. I was really young in the street. And I tell him, well, I got to get my GED because they done put me out because I want to go to college. So he said, go get your GED. So I go to this school down near Dunbar. It's a school they call it for all the stupid kids, But they most kids trouble children, They're stupid and just they get themselves in a lot of trouble. So I get down to this school. So I'm wired up down to the school. The teachers, they say you got to be here maybe 6 months, then you take your GED. So I tell them I don't need 6 months. I need about 2 weeks. He said, you can't pass no GED in 2 weeks. So I say, yeah, I can pass it in 2 weeks. He said, all right, well, listen, I'll give you a shot. He said, I'll let you take a placement test. It looked like you can do something. Maybe I'll give it to you early. I take it. He said, okay, you can take it. I take the test. I think I was there 40 days. Take it, get my GED. Everybody in the class was cheating off my paper. I swear to God. I get the GED. So when I get the GED, as soon as I get the GED, I go to Catonsville Community College. So when I get to Catonsville Community College, I'm actually a 10th grader.
Oh, wow.
My 10th grade class was still in the 10th grade, and I was already in college.
Oh, okay.
But everything was different when I got there. The girls were different. All of them had cars. The family had money. They were older women.
Okay.
They don't know I'm still a child, but I'm acting like I'm not. You know what I mean? Hustling on the streets and stuff like that. So, and going back to the law library, it was a gentleman when I got there, I was working in the kitchen. He was telling me about this law, this thing called straw man. A lot of guys know about this stuff. And that some kind of way the federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over your body, bunch of hocus pocus.
Uh-huh.
So and I was in Atlanta Penitentiary at this time. I had left Lewisburg for a while. I've been there 7 years left.
Okay.
So he tells me, listen, I'll teach you this stuff. I won't teach you. I'll let you pay me. And if you pay me, I'll be able to get you out of jail within a year. Guaranteed. Federal government got to let you go. Some stuff, secret stuff, don't nobody know about, secret society stuff. So I'm listening to this foolishness. So I'm paying the guy. So I remember I got to the point where I have money to pay him. So he said, well, I can't teach you no more. And I can't finish it for you till you give me the money. But I had found out he was getting the books from this guy named Freddie. Now, lo and behold, the guy Freddie is old Italian from the Colombo family.
Okay.
In New York. So I got a friend of mine at that time that I was in Lewisburg with. His name was Michael. He was part of Colombo. He was a capo.
Okay.
So when I tell Freddie, I said, listen, I was in Lewisburg. He said, yeah, who you know? I said, I know the guy Michael. He said, you don't know Mike? I said, sure, I know him. I said, it was my phone number right here in my address book. And when he looked at it, he said, I give you all the books. I won't give them to him no more. You can learn everything you want. So he gave me everything, and I studied day and night until I realized this stuff was a scam. But it put me on a path to want to learn the law. So I started learning business law, corporate law. It took me quite a long time to get to criminal law because in prison, all people got is hope. And once you extinguish that hope, you get the drugs, a bunch of other bad stuff, the foolishness. But as long as they got that hope, they'll hold on for as long as possible. And I didn't want to start taking on criminal cases at that time because I didn't want to extinguish anyone's hope if I didn't think I was good enough. Because all you got in joint is jailhouse lawyers. They're doing the best they can. Some of them complete bums, and then some bums and think they're really good. Those are the dangerous ones. See, the other guys, at least they know they're hustling you.
Yeah.
But these guys, they really think they know what they're talking about. They mess stuff up. You know?
Yeah.
So I kept working towards that, and every day, every night, I worked, studied constantly, and that was my introduction to law.
Wow. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to have Corey on the show today was because, Corey, you're our first guest on our podcast, Law and Disorder, where we talk about the very first episode and from cuffs to barbed wire. Now, on the podcast episode, we really just talk about the court system, the difference between the state side and the federal side, and we brush a little bit about your background. But we don't go into it like we're going into it now, do we?
No.
Now, I think it's important that I wanted people to really see and to find out who Corey was before you really even maybe listen to the podcast, because he has such an interesting background. When you sit down and look at this young man, basically, who enjoys school, who decides, you know what, I'm going to hustle it. I'm going to school in the day, but I'm going to run the drug shop. You get kicked out. You get your GED. With your GED, you get it within 40 days, and you're in college when everybody else is in 10th grade.
That's
so that tells you were naturally gifted and very smart, like so many of the people that we run across.
Sure.
And you just needed to be directed in a different path. Once you're really listening and you're focused on your work, did there come a time period where you realized that you had hope for your case?
Actually, I haven't. No.
Okay.
I never thought that I would get out of prison. And this don't make me no tougher than nobody else, right? Anybody confronted with a situation where you placed in understanding that this is it for you. But I have filed so many different things in the law and was always no. So every time there was a new guideline that changed someone's sentence, somebody that had 30 or life, and gave them 2 points or some kind of reduction, and they were going home, which didn't happen frequently in the pen. Maybe in FCI is a lot more. But whenever we filed or I filed, I was able to help a lot of people, but it never affected me. And
so you were able to help other people through the law, get lower sentences, but you weren't able to help yourself.
No, I wasn't able to help myself at that time. I didn't know I was helping myself at that time. God had a plan for me. I couldn't see it at the time. So careful what you wish for. You say, man, I want to be successful. I want a different kind of life. Well, God might take you through a path to take you 30 years to get there. You say, when you get there, you say, damn, the way I asked I would be 30 years ago. But you say, he sure took me on a ride. You might not like that ride, you know, and that's what happened. And for me, like I said, but even though I didn't think I would get out, I kept fighting every day like I would.
Okay.
Always a new remedy, always fighting harder, always fighting for somebody else. Whenever something came and it affected somebody else, I was never the kind of person to say, oh, man, that ain't helped me. You know, for hell with that person. I was always happy. Hey, man, good for you. Do something with yourself when you get out there. Take care of your family. Enjoy yourself. Don't come back here, man. Ain't nothing here. And for me, that worked. It was enough. But gradually, I became better and better at the law. See, for me, and a lot of times, with the law, everybody has a specialty.
Okay.
You know, like, boss, you're a criminal defense attorney, you like super sharp. Go in the courtroom, you make stuff happen. I told you win when you ain't supposed to win. I've seen that time. You ain't got no business winning this case. You're going there win anyway.
Yeah, I'm blessed, very blessed.
You're master with that jury in front of that,
Yeah.
you're master. But there rarely a time where the attorneys also are skilled at appellate litigation, post-conviction, federal forfeiture. They ain't got time for all of things. But I'm in jail 23 years, 6 months. I ain't got time to do nothing but that. So I master everything.
Okay.
Federal law, appellate litigation, post-conviction. I'm doing all this stuff.
Okay.
I'm following stuff, I'm working constantly. So for me, I became really good at it. And I became good at it to the point. I had a friend of mine I was away with. His name was, he's still in, he's a Hasidic Jew, real good friend of mine. His name, Sholem Weiss, to give him 850 years for fraud.
850 years for fraud.
Years. Said he stole $500 million from an insurance firm. Now, I've seen every piece of paperwork he had. Me and him worked day and night. Jewish guy. Loved to cook. Was an excellent person. And he still is. Been fighting to try to help him. And he used to talk about $100 million like it was like $25. That's how he used to talk about money. He mean nothing to me.
Wow.
But, I mean, that's the kind of person he was. But he was really kind of hard. But I saw how the law didn't help or work for him. Nonviolent, to this day still fighting to get some justice. Constantly telling me, man, don't give up. You never know. That day that knock came on the door for me, the day that it changed for me, I didn't expect it, but it happened.
Okay.
But when it happened like that.
Quickly.
Yep.
So you were able to get your paralegal degree while you were incarcerated?
The only reason I have any degree that I have, because it's a friend of mine, and he's actually just came home. He's from Connecticut. He's one of those guys that do all of that embezzlement stuff. Good friend of mine. So he tells me, he says, Corey, this is before anything with the guidelines changed, anything. I expect any relief. He says, Corey, why don't you get some paper? So I said, what do you mean? He said, well, get some degrees, get something so when you go home, you have something to show for all the stuff you do. You win all these cases, you need somebody. I said, man, I don't need that stuff. Everybody in the joint know how good I am. He said, well, no, you need paper. I said, plus, probably ain't never getting out of here. Why do I care about that stuff? He said, just do it for me. So I go call my sisters and say, listen, I want to get this stuff taken care of. I'm sending you information. So they signed me up at Blackstone School of Law.
Okay.
So at Blackstone School of Law, I get my general paralegal degree in paralegal studies. But the thing about it is that I used to get hundreds on everything. It was so very easy for me that I constantly got hundreds. I remember getting a letter one day from the president, and the letter said, we look forward and value you being at this school. And, look, your work is really good. And we just want to say that, we hope you continue. And we tell everyone that cheating won't be tolerated. Just slid it in there. So I'm like, what the hell is this? Because I never got anything wrong, they assumed I was cheating some kind of way.
Oh, okay.
So I took the letter to my friend, Mr. Weiss, the Hasidic Jew I'm telling you about. And I say, man, why do you think they would do that? He said, Corey, he said, nobody expects 100% from anybody. He said, get some answers wrong. Just do it sometimes. I said, why would I have to do that? He said, it's just how the world works. So I started getting some answers wrong. Graduated paralegal with 99.5% student average. Then after that, I took an advanced course in business and corporate law. Passed that with like 90-something%. Then I was involved with an organization called Divide Ventures that taught venture capitalism. They were partnered with the Hankemer School of Business, Baylor University. We got a certificate, diploma in career readiness for venture capitalism. So I got all of these different things. Then when I came home, I met you.
All right, well, let's talk about that. Once again, I just want to let all our listeners know that this is Corey Woodfuck. You've been listening to his background, listening to his story. Today, we launched with DMV the podcast Law and Disorder with Ivan Bates. Corey Woodfuck was my very, very first guest, and we sat down, we broke down the judicial system on the state side and the federal side. I wanted to have Corey Woodfuck come today just so you could know who this individual is. So it wasn't just a voice on the other side that you were listening to, but someone who you had heard a story and you knew that he'd lived the judicial system on the federal side and really had spent the time to understand what it meant and really studied it for the past 23 years. Now, let's talk about how we met. I remember we have a mutual friend, Stokey, Carmichael Kennedy Stokey, who does a lot in the city for the people. And I remember Stokey reaching out to me to say, hey, I have a good friend of mine who's getting ready to come home from the joint. He's been away 23 years. He has a paralegal degree, and he's looking for a job. Are you looking for someone to do things on the federal side? I remember saying yes. And I think you called me or you emailed me, I think.
Yeah, he gave me your number. You
emailed me, and I remember telling you, send me your resume, but then I realized, you're not working a day-to-day job.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget you came in. I always like to tease you and tell the story. When you came in, I'd known a little bit about you. Stokey had given me the background information. And when you came in, I'll never forget you had this Tommy Hilfiger sweater. I like to tease you. It was the same sweater that I was rocking back in the 90s when I was in college. And so I was like, wow, either this sweater's coming back in style or my brother ain't been shopping since the 90s. So I think it was you hadn't really been shopping since the 90s. It was an interview that I will always remember because most interviews, you have a resume that people are talking about themselves. You really didn't talk a lot about yourself. You just gave me a tape. And on that tape, you said, look, I would just really want you to listen to this tape. And I'll never forget, we pressed play on the tape recorder. And I heard a voice that I've heard many times as a judge, who's now the city solicitor, Judge Andre Davis. He was a judge here, and basically I remember hearing that voice, and he was being a judge on the Fourth Circuit down in Richmond. That's the appellate court. And you had filed a motion to change the post-conviction law in basically the state on the federal side. And I remember him saying that this was the best well-pled pro se motion he had ever seen in his entire career, and that he was hoping that the Bureau of Prisons would have brought Corey because he wanted to meet you. I remember hearing the U.S. attorney say, yeah, I agree, Your Honor, and the U.S. attorney really pretty much admitting that they didn't have an argument that you were right on the law. That was very, very impressive to me. And when I heard Judge Davis utter those words, I knew right away I need to hire you. One of the things I do want to talk about is criminal justice reform. When you look at an individual that's been in jail for 23 years, you may want to really do something really great with your life when you get out. I'm sure everybody who gets out, their intention is, hey, I want to do something positive. But do you find that by not having a job, that dims the light of hope that you talked about that individuals coming home need to have?
It can, and it usually does it fast because the world usually creeps up on you really fast.
Yeah.
Bills, all those kind of things. They happen really quick. People don't give you a chance to succeed. They expect you to succeed immediately, especially if you were someone that was a provider in any kind of way before. So that can make a difference when you come home, you don't have work, things like that. But for me, I didn't have I came home without a backup plan. There was no backup plan. My plan was straight ahead. I was prepared to come home too. When I was taught venture capitalism, the woman, Kathy Hope from Defy Venture, she told me, she said, when you get home, somebody's going to tell you no. So I don't care how good you are. I don't care how fantastic you think you are. I don't care how good you may actually be. Somebody going to tell you no, and somebody else going to tell you no. You got to get the yes. So when I came home, I expected no. I expected to run into that no. A lot of times when guys get out of the joint, let's say, for instance, they got some degree in something while they was away. They're really prepared. They're excited. They want to get started. They want to do something different. They get home. They keep getting no's everywhere they go. They don't want to hire a felon. They can't get a job. And after a while, they say, man, I'm going to do what I used to know. But for me, there was no going back. It's like a man between two bridges, right? And there's a fire right there behind him. He can't go back that way. I got to make this jump. If I don't make this jump, I'm dead. Okay. For me, it was that jump.
Okay.
That I was going to stay focused, and the street was, that wasn't going to happen no more.
So when you get released and you're in front of the judge, the same judge that sentenced you 23 years earlier to 50 years. What was it that the judge said to you when he changed your sentence from 50 years to time served, 23 years and 6 months?
Well, it was done through 3582 motions, and Lauren Case, who's a great woman attorney, she was out the Greenbelt office, Federal Public Defender's office. When we filed the motion, we asked for an immediate release based on the time that I had in. But you got to remember, this is based on the judge's completely his discretion.
Yeah.
Okay, how good at this time I had almost 20 years. No, matter of fact, a little bit over 20 years. No infraction since while I was in. All the degrees that I had received. Actually counsel guys that were in the joints to put down the flags, do something different with their life, start fighting. Education, all those kind of things. Education changed the world. You get education, you can do anything you want. Make you stop doing a bunch of foolishness. But in doing all those things, I was expecting the government to say, we don't care about, his accomplishments. Commendable, but his past is enough that we say we don't take a chance on him. And their response when they came back, they said, yeah, he deserves something. So they said, take 20 years off. Leave him with 30 years. So I would have had to do another maybe 3 years, 3.5 years.
Okay.
Now, for me, I was fine with that.
Okay.
It was some life for me. I had 3.5 years stand on my head. Let me get that. But Ms. Case was like, no, Corey, we will get you all the way out. I said, listen, don't be messing with those people. They say 3.5 more years. I got 50 years. My release date for 2033. I'm fine with them 3 years. So let's just see. So, but I told her, don't attack the government. They got a right to the position that they got based on my history. Don't attack the government at all. Just speak about what I've done and my accomplishments, and let's let the judge make the decision. And the decision that Judge Motz made in a letter, he said, I remember clearly, Mr. Woodfolk has filed a 3582 motion. He asked for reduction in his sentence. He asked for 324 months. The government asked for 400 months. He said, while Mr. Woodfolk's crimes were horrible, his rehabilitation has been extraordinary. I reduced his sentence to 324 months, out the door.
So you got released right then and there.
Well, pretty much out the door. I was still in for another 7 months, something like that.
Okay.
But it was out the door for all.
As far as you're concerned. All right, so you leave, then we come in contact, and so far, you and I have had the opportunity. We've had federal cases. We've won. We've been on the state side winning. We've gone to New Orleans and done cases together. When you look at your life now, what would you tell that young kid who's out there in the corner hustling and is headed toward federal prison? What would you tell them now?
I would tell them when you get, because it's either you die early or you grow older. If you don't want to die, if you want to die, you can just walk out and jump off a building and walk in front of a car if you want to get rid of your life. But I assume that you want to live.
Yeah.
Right. Whether you're in the street hustle, whatever you're doing, whether it's for the girls, whatever it's for, I assume you want to be here. All right. But if you're looking for some longevity in your life, all the gold and diamond chains, diamond rings, the collar, all those things, how much of it can you have before you find some peace for yourself? When it make a difference.
Okay.
And that stuff gonna go away, right? That lifestyle, the things that you think you like now, you ain't gonna like 10 years from now. The way you think now, you ain't gonna think 10 years from now. And then 10 years from that, you're gonna think differently. Give yourself a chance to do something differently. But you can be successful in your life without being in the street, without a life of crime. I know, listen, if I can change, anybody can change. You can't talk to me about nobody being able to change. Because my life, my mother, love her to death, rest her soul, drugs, all those kind of things. My father, my family, the way my life was, where we were situated, who we grew up with. This is all we knew.
Okay.
It's all we did. There were motions in federal court for what's called disadvantaged youth. When I was in court, I never filed none of that stuff because I didn't think I was disadvantaged. I thought I was fine. But I didn't know that, like, everybody don't grow up like that. Everybody don't grow up with prostitution in their house, dope, shooting dope, sniffing coke, smoking crack. Everybody don't live that way. But for people in the inner cities or out in the counties whose lives are like that, it becomes normal to them. And that normalcy is a complacency that will change their lives in a very dramatic fashion, in a way that either kills them and destroys them or ultimately changes them. But you got to be able to get the change. You got to want to do something different. And you got to surround yourself with the right people. Now, if you go up in a neighborhood area with people on your block, you ain't got nowhere else to go. These are the people you grew up with. I can't leave my mother's house. I ain't got a job yet. I'm still a youngster. I'm still a teenager. All the kids in my block, either they ganged up, they in the street, they doing what they doing. This is who I'm around. This is who I live with. So you tell a kid, hey, man, don't be around those people. Well, who am I going to be around? It's the only people that's here. So that education makes all the difference. Where if you can teach a kid or a youngster how to be successful, because all it's about is the money. They just want to be able to have some money to do some things they want to do. I don't care if it's watch TV, go to movies, travel, whatever it is they want the money. If you can say, listen, you can do that without dope. So all right, show me. If you show it to them, they'll do something different than to be in the street. You just got to be able to show them that. But through that education, through that mentoring, and that opportunity. Now, nobody's guaranteed or owed an opportunity in life. You got to fight for it. You got to find your way. Sometimes it'll be there, but one door closed, another one open. You just got to be able to walk through it. You got to know when it's there for you.
Okay. So since you've been back, I think you look at Baltimore City and you see the crime that we have. What would you do if you were the mayor in terms of putting together a crime plan to reach those type of youth who are in your shoes, 20 some odd years ago, but now they're in their shoes today?
It would be education, and not teaching them the ABCs and arithmetic and all that kind of stuff. You can't change people or persons that are in the thick of a life. Right? You see you see guys on the corner hustling. You can't grab him and say, man, get off this corner. Stop selling this stuff. He said, man, I got money in my pocket. I'm living a certain kind of way. This worked for me. I know I'm going to wind up in prison, but this worked for me. You can't make him change right there.
Okay.
But where you can make him change that is early on, when he got that lower charge that he over the detention center for, or he get that little 8 or 9 month charge that year when he sat down. See, people are forced to think when they sit down.
Okay.
And that's where you have those programs at, like the 5 Ventures taught me venture capitalism, taught me business. And when you there, you teach them business, and that little year that they got, they come home, they got a whole different outlook on things. They see things different, but you got to get them then. Now, most of the time, most people that have serious crime or serious criminal records are people that have first had misdemeanors. They start out slow. They get one charge, get another charge. They do a little time, come home, catch another charge, do another. That first time, that early on, them early stages before they become hardened criminals, that's where you have to get them at. But it starts with education. But not education, just your ABCs. Teaching them something that will give them gainful employment in their life. Not teaching them, of course, how to be a manager at Burger King. Now, commendable. If a person want to work at Burger King, they're trying to grind, they're getting themselves together. They start here at Burger King, maybe at Walmart, you got 2-3 different jobs. Get you some money, put yourself together, do something different. That's fine. But I'm saying giving somebody something that they can look up to, that they can look forward to. Hey, man, I got a chance. If I do these things right in business, I got a chance to live a really good life.
Okay. So when you look at, you hear the term all the time, criminal justice reform. Do you think, what does that look like? And so say you're a person who's doing a sentence. What does that sound like to a person who's doing a sentence? Criminal justice reform.
Well, the proof in the pudding. People that hear that in the joints, or that's incarcerated, when they hear it, they hoping that it says something, it means something to them. They're hoping that criminal justice reform mean I'm getting out of jail sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Like with the 924Cs, 18 U.S.C. 924C, felon in possession not felon use of a firearm during a relation to crime of violence, or doing a drug trafficking crime. Now, what they do with those charges is they stack them. You can get charged. You say you used the gun today to rob somebody. You took that same gun you used a couple hours later. You robbed somebody else. Maybe the next day you used that same gun. So it goes from 5, 15, 25, 50 for the same action. So this new First Step Act is supposed to cut down on that. Guys that have at least 2 prior felony drug convictions, then they catch another federal drug conviction, and that drug conviction puts them in a mandatory minimum range, maybe 1 kilo of heroin, fentanyl, or anything that puts them into that guideline range. Crack, a certain amount of crack, puts you into that 10 to life range. Automatically, the penalty was mandatory life. Good friend of mine, Musa, hope this new law helps. It's federal First Step Act. They changed it to where now it's 25 years. I believe he got 28 years. It may be helpful to him. So anytime a person hears criminal justice reform, they're hoping that it helps them in some kind of way. Changes something for them.
Okay. All right. So I would like to, Jason, you've heard a lot. What do you think when you sit down? Because we always talk about what we think we know in terms of people that go in. We're going to do this for them. We're going to do that for them. I think here's an individual in Corey that's been there for 23 years, and just hearing his story. What are some of your thoughts?
Well, first of all, you're very inspirational. I really commend you because you could have easily took what happened to you and easily fall into the system, never to be seen again. But instead, you took what you had and you went out there and you bettered yourself and you tried to help others in the process. So I commend you for everything that you've done to reach to this point. What I'm really interested in hearing from Mr. Corey is this whole criminal justice system currently. You keep hearing about tougher sentencing. You keep hearing folks blaming the judges and saying the judges are not being tough on crime. What would you think your solution is to this whole criminal justice system and trying to curb some of the public safety issues that you see, within our community? What will be some of your solutions?
More time generally doesn't change criminal attitude and conduct.
Right.
You can put me in the jail, keep me in the jail as long as you want. If I'm not learning anything in there, if I'm not learning to change the way I think, punishment don't change the way you think. It just puts you in a position, hopefully you do it in a different way where you ain't got to feel this punishment anymore. But if you educate me, I change my thinking. If I change my thinking, I change my conduct.
Right.
Education is everything.
I think that's one of the things that I talked to Ivan about the recidivism rate in New York City and how they kind of changed their recidivism rate. They used to have easily close to 80% recidivism within folks coming in, especially into Rikers Island. And what they started doing in Rikers Island was they started evaluating folks as they come in. If you need GED and you were in that age group, where GED would benefit you, you immediately got into a class. If you were past that GED stage, a little bit of an older adult, they got you into some union apprenticeship or some job training skills, whether you were learning carpentry, electric, plumbing, steam fitter, bricklaying, things of that nature. And they were able to turn that recidivism rate around to actually where it's like less than 20% now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're evaluating folks and giving them, opportunities and teaching them as opposed to just housing them, in the institution. So that's definitely something that's needed. But we know that in a lot of cases, like the state of Maryland, they took away a lot of these different, going to college while you're in prison, and getting degrees. And in some cases, there are no GED or reading or any type of educational programming within the correctional system. But I agree with you. I think that's the key to recidivism is once you have them and you have them occupied, then now we need to, educate you. We need to put something of substance, some skill set underneath you so that when you do get released or come out, that you become a productive citizen, or it's easier for you to assimilate. Because a lot of times what happens is when we do get folks back into the community that had just been incarcerated, the community with the programs that are limited have to work on, trying to develop job skills, job readiness, GED, and some sort of program to try to get them, up to speed so that they can assimilate back into the community. But again, if we're doing that at the prison level, I wish we could do it before then and make sure that, you know what I mean, a lot of our young men and women have the opportunities afforded to them before they get to that point. But if they do get into that point where they are incarcerated, then that's the perfect, prime, place for us to be able to work with them and get them the skill sets and get them the job readiness that they'll need to be able to come back and assimilate to the community. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And if I could speak to that, if you want to change a condition, our city, if your budget on the criminal justice system in Maryland, that was through policing, institutions, all of these different things together, however many millions of dollars it is, and let's say it's 150 million, and let's say you take 1.5 million and you give a grant to try to help.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing with that 1.5 million?
Right.
I mean, what you gonna do with it? If you want to change a condition, all of the effort that you put in putting people in prison, take half of that effort, take half of that 150 million or whatever, and put it in education and watch what happens.
Yeah.
Then you ain't got to worry about people come home affecting society poorly. You get people that come home that do productive things, and you're looking at a maybe 10-year turnaround where it can be really different if you really invest in it. Now, you ain't going to change everybody. You can't save everybody. Somebody just ain't going to change. Some people, I can say it, Paul, they just ain't no worthily good.
Right.
That ain't going to make no difference.
Right.
And those are the ones that, they got something for. They got SWAT and all of them to give them what they're looking for.
Right.
But those that can change and want to change, we got to give them a chance.
See, I believe that God doesn't make any junk. You know what I mean? So for me, I think that everybody, to me, is savable. You just have to figure out exactly what it is. I mean, besides the mental health issues, because we do have some folks that technically, have some serious mental health issues. And unfortunately, there may not be some help. And in even some cases, medication, treatment, therapy, things of that nature may be able to help them. But I believe that God didn't make any junk. It's just really finding our purpose in life. You know what I mean? And instilling that purpose in us that makes us to want to strive to be a better person and to be productive in life. But
I also think that what makes, to me, Corey's story so positive and such a good story is, the system, a lot of times judges don't want to take a chance on a person because they took a chance on someone and they didn't hold their end of the bargain. And the U.S. Attorney's Office, they don't want to take a chance because they're supposed to protect, they're charging and going after, as they say, quote unquote, the worst of the worst. Now, when Corey was released, he was given 5 years of what's called supervised release, i.e. probation, where you got to see an agent, and the agent has to come and see you. And, I guess after a little more than 2 years, they told Corey, we don't even know why we're supervising you. Put in the paperwork to go ahead and end it.
Right.
Because you're the easiest person we've ever had to watch.
Right.
And so it was funny because Corey's going over to the courthouse, so he's seen the agents there, so they're like, well, I know he's working, Then where he lives isn't far from where they, so they're gonna walk across the street, see his apartment and everything, and then they look around, he's working all the time. And I think for them, they realize like this is a person who just gets it and who has made that change. And I will gladly sit down and say that we filed a motion and the agent said, hey, he's doing great and we think this should be ended. Supervised release should be ended. The U.S. Attorney's Office said, hey, if the agent says that, then we agree. And the judge is the same judge who's supervising the consent decree. He didn't even have a hearing. He just signed off on it. So they closed out his supervised release after 2 years, which is almost unheard of.
Right.
So I guess the first time since you were in your teens You're not on probation papers, anything whatsoever. You're 100% free in that regard.
That is true. But since, again, my mentality, my life, the way I thought, the way I think, the way I act was different. So I never felt like I was on probation anyway. I never was looking over my shoulder, nothing.
You didn't feel like the man was on top of you the whole
ticket,
time.
I don't turn right on red.
Right,
I mean, but when after it happened, they had a little thing for me. They make a big deal out of that stuff.
Yeah, we had a little office party. Because the reason I wanted to have Corey as my first guest with the podcast is because I want people to have hope. Because in the criminal defense world, I come across a lot of people who lose hope quickly. And they have their lives shattered, but sometimes they've shattered other people's lives as well. And in the criminal justice system, there are some people who, look, you have to be held accountable if you do something wrong. My job is to make sure your rights are protected and fight as hard as I possibly can for you. Now, I can fight just as hard as I possibly can for you, but if you did it and the evidence shows that you did it, then you're going to be found guilty. And I think it's important for the listener to understand that the criminal justice system is about human beings, about us, and that we make mistakes, but we learn from our mistakes. And everybody wants one thing, whether you're in jail, you're out of jail, whether you're black, white, purple, green, male or female. We all want to have hope. And hope is the word that President Obama used and rode all the way to the White House.
Yeah. Yes,
hope is that word that makes individuals who have been some of the most violent people on the outside all of a sudden get their act together because they have hope of getting back to their loved ones and their family. Yeah. And for us, and having Corey as the first guest of the podcast, that really says, hey, I want to not only teach you about the criminal justice system, but I want you to see somebody who's experienced it and come back out and is better now than they ever were before. Our criminal justice system isn't necessarily set up for that. They want it to be. They talk about it. But if you don't grab hope yourself, but if you rely on that system, it will run you over. And before you know it, you will be doing life either straight up or life in prison on the installment plan. Mm-hmm. And for me, I just think understand the criminal justice system, educating yourself and avoiding it is something great. But if you're in there, what can you do to help yourself get out of it? So,
that's why I think he's truly inspirational because, again, under the circumstances, not only were you a support system for yourself and gave yourself hope at some point, but you gave others hope. You know what I mean? So you actually helped others to be able to work within the system and find some hope, and again, have you, a great question. I'm pretty sure that probably folks would want to probably know. Have you by any chance gotten in contact with any of the folks that you've helped in the past, or have you heard any updates from any of the folks that you've helped in the past?
They call me all the time.
Okay.
Call me, call link me 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Hey, Corey, you take care of yourself.
So you're still that beacon of hope. You're still that
all the
beacon
guys,
of support.
A lot of guys in the joints and institution, they call me, help with their cases. The family members call me. I speak to them, and I always take a call.
Wow.
Always take a call, even when I'm busy or something. I take a call. I had stuff to do tonight.
Right. Do you do anything as far as the juvenile justice system, or work with youth by any chance, or even tell your inspirational story?
All the time, but not the system, but with my family members, friends of families, things like that.
Okay.
Talk to them all the time. Tell them do something different with your life.
Right.
Hey man, listen.
Right.
That day gonna come.
Right.
Do something different with your life, especially guys a little older. You get to around 45, 50. What are you doing?
I think that's important to reach one, teach one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Definitely within your family.
But I'm willing to do that kind of stuff. Mr. Ivan, what are we working on now? We're working with the young lady that came to us, is trying to get us to help with the program.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of people that
do some things,
reach out and always ask us to help. We're always helping, going out speaking. making sure that they know who Corey is, because these kids in the streets, they need to see someone who they can relate to. You know, it's interesting because, look, many people know, look, I ran for state's attorney, and I would talk about making sure we had jobs and education. But I really didn't feel like I could talk about that if I'd never given someone a chance myself. You know, I remember when I told a couple people I was going to hire Corey, and they were like, man, are you sure you really want to do that? Like, that brother's going to have an ankle monitor bracelet, you know, at your office.
I did.
Like, they could come to your office at any time.
Right,
and, you know, the
right.
feds could come in your office, and if he messes up and da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, I remember telling them, you know, if someone didn't give me a chance, I wouldn't be here. And I'll have to lift as I climb. And, you know, that's been my motto and how I try to live my life. And with Corey, you know, hey, we just gave him a little bit of a hand. Now, this brother decided he just running up the wall of life, you know. And, you know, the good thing about it is hearing that he still calls, takes the call. He doesn't turned off his phone. His people still have his number, so he can make sure he can try to give them hope.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to change Baltimore, it's right there. We know what to do. We just have to sit down and see the success stories to understand how we can accomplish our goals.
Yeah.
You know, Corey, I've really, really enjoyed this.
And Corey, I guess another reason why you're kind of inspirational to me is because I probably was that close to being incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was an old street guy, and again, you're absolutely right. I remember back in the day, they weren't really kind of gangs.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of crews and posses.
That's it, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, boys from around the block. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I was an old street guy. I hustled. I sold dope, coke, you name it. You know, weed. You know, I was out there in the streets pretty heavily. So, you know, looking at you, I could have easily been in that same circumstance and situation. And I don't know necessarily, again, if I would have toughened it out and have really put my mind to where it needed to be like you did. So again, you're truly inspirational. And just
Thank you.
looking at some of the numbers, because you were talking about the numbers earlier, I just want to close out with this. But, you know, easily $37,000 a year to incarcerate an inmate. In Baltimore City alone, we house anywhere between $280 million worth of criminal justice is spent just out of the zip codes out of Baltimore City. I estimate statewide we spend easily between the police, public safety, criminal justice system, easily over $1 billion alone, just looking at the numbers and kind of averaging it off. And you're absolutely right. If we could take a fraction of that and find a way to put a little bit of money into criminal justice reform, educational and job readiness, and you know, some great programs within the correctional facility, and not just house folks.
Right.
Because we know in a lot of cases, a lot of these institutions around the state are just housing folks. As a matter of fact, I mean, when you look at the origins of certain things like BGF, you know, its origins was right out of Jessup,
That's
you
right.
know, right out of the Maryland Correctional Facility. So, you know, instead of really looking at housing these folks and just keeping them occupied until it's time for them to be released, we really need to find a way to reform the system so that we do create stellar, fine citizens like yourself coming out of the system, ready to tackle the world and ready to take, the community by storm. And really be productive like you have. So, again, I commend you for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Chad.
And will continue to do.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I just think that, in Baltimore, we're so quick to throw away someone who has a couple dents on them. But when you realize those dents are nothing more than the opportunity to show that they have life experience. And, you know, I've learned an awful lot from Corey. You know, I hope he's learned a couple of things from me. But, I've learned an awful lot from Corey. And Corey's the type of person that does inspire me and gives me hope and lets me see that, yeah, you may see A, B, C, and D in the paper and this murder, this shooting, and these numbers, you know, but if you really sit down and deal with it on a person-by-person level and basis, that you can really help people change. And, you know, Corey, you definitely have been an inspiration not only to me, but to Jason and so many of our other listeners. You know, is there anything that you want to say in closing?
what I want to say to Baltimore City and anybody else that's listening is that every day you breathe, you can do something different with your life. Okay, how many prior records you got, how bad it is for you. You can do something different. You just gotta wake up today and say, man, I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna learn something different so I can do something for me and my family, and live my life a little differently than I've been living it, just so I can be productive. But you can do anything you want to do.
All right. And with that, we will go ahead and close. But once again, we today are announcing our first podcast of Law and Disorder with Ivan Bates.
And family, you can find that on any of your podcast network, iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcast from. It's available. Just do a search for DMV Daily News and search for Law and Disorder, and you should be able to find it on most of your outlets. And again, I can't wait to the second episode. Truly inspirational, again, Corey. And I thank you for being our guest today on the DMV Daily Radio Show.
Yeah, and thank you so much, all our listeners out there. Tomorrow we'll have another exciting show. And if they want to reach me, they can find me on Ivan J. Bates on Twitter or Ivan at Bates Garcia. And they can also find you as well, Corey.
At woodfolkcorey@gmail.com or cwoodfolk@batesgarcia.com.
All right. And with that, we are, going to go ahead and...
What was the, and I believe that was Brother Tyrone calling in. I apologize. I mean, Brother Thomas calling in. Brother Thomas, we're actually getting ready to close out. But what's the show going on for tomorrow? Do you know?
I don't off the top of my head. I do know on Wednesday we will have...
That's tomorrow, Wednesday.
I mean, Thursday we'll have the union, SEIU, the Sister Ricard, to sit and talk about the $15.
The fight for 15.
Fight for 15. Yep. So I do know that. And on Friday, I think we will also have one of the people running for the delegate seats. But I do also want to make sure everybody knows, put down the 18th, which is President's Day, if I'm not mistaken. We will have a town hall where we talk about criminal justice system and what's happening and really what's going on. Yeah. And it should be an amazing town hall. A lot of people are reaching out. They're excited because this is a topic that they want to talk about. At the end of the day, people want to have, as Corey said, hope.
Yeah, and we're looking for a solutions, family. So this is not a time to come out and talk about the mayor this and the police that. We want solutions. So we're looking for folks to come out with their plans, with their ideas. And if you by any chance can't make it out to the town hall, you could also participate online. It's going to be fully interactive. We'll take your particular ideas and suggestions online as well and present it to the town hall. So, just in case you can't make it, there will be ways for you to be able to communicate and express your ideas.
Without a doubt. So with that, I just want to make sure that everybody remembers to try to lift as you climb. God bless and free Keith Davis.